Brace for impact.
Oh, yeah, we're here Thursday nights for the first episode of Brace for Impact, covering all things Impact Wrestling. As always, live from No Sale Studios at the Ace Tavern, Acefield Retro, and joined with that Mullet Mania, that beautiful Kentucky waterfall. Colton, what's up, dude?
What's going on, brother? Man, so stoked to be doing Brace for Impact. I've been, we've heard a lot of feedback from the fans saying they want Impact representation on the tavern, and here we are to give it to you, man. Ace and I are both huge Impact fans, and we are so stoked to be doing this show.
So, guys, I mean, if you caught us last week, you're like, what happened to ROH? And if you missed all the shows we've been dropping the news on, we did a quick rebrand because Colton and I have been talking about it for a bit. There hasn't been that much meat on the bone with ROH, but you'll still get your ROH fix at Wrestling Tonight. Myself and Chad will deliver it. For the pay-per-views, we'll get Colton back on for Death Before Dishonor pre-show, talk all things about ROH, so you still get your fill. But I feel like Impact, for the consistent product they've been giving us, they deserve the emphasis, the spotlight, whatever you want to call it. They deserve to be covered.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, we've all said it multiple different times. I mean, over the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, Impact has been the most consistent professional wrestling product of any promotion. It's just been fantastic.
Absolutely. And you guys can find this, obviously, Thursdays at 10:10 to 10:30, depending on what time this finishes, and we get used to the flow. So bear with us. But the other thing is we're going to have an audio drop, too. Friday morning's going to be dropping some audio. So a double dip. We're going to get the Raw Down audio. We're also going to get the Brace for Impact audio. So we're going to fill your ear holes all weekend, catching up on all the things you need for professional wrestling, keeping you covered from end to end. Now we have all the big three covered, plus, other stuff in between with Wrestling Tonight. Man, Turnbuckle Tavern has you covered.
Yeah, there's not a day of the week we're not giving you free content. So please, as always, remember, go to theturnbuckletavern.com, like, subscribe, give us a follow. We love doing what we do. We love having you guys along for the ride.
All right, so as we follow this format, we're going to follow some of the same format that we were following for ROH, but we're going to get into our new segment, which we're going to be calling The Insight.
1, 2, 3, 4. The Insight.
All right, here's our news segment. You might notice the scoop from ROH, but here we are with the insight for the Impact Wrestling news. And first of all, I want to welcome Rock'em Sock'em Wrestling in the chat. What's up? Brace yourself is right. Brace yourself for Impact. We're covering all things Impact Wrestling here. And we're going to celebrate. And it's kind of apropos we're starting this show, Colton, because Impact Wrestling on Monday, we're thanking fans for 21 years of support, because Monday marked 21 years since the first ever NWA TNA pay-per-view back on June 19th, 2002. All the way back from the Von Braun Center, Huntsville, Alabama. Show was headlined, believe it or not, by Ken Shamrock, winning a 20-man gauntlet for the gold in the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. They've been paying tribute to this. We're about on the horizon of 1,000 episodes of Impact Wrestling. But believe it or not, that was 21 years ago, and here we are all these years later. The product looks a lot different, but it's still the same lineage.
Yeah, man, it's hard to believe it's been 21 years, but that just speaks to the rich history that this company has. And like you said, how serendipitous that we do the first week of Brace for Impact on the 21-year anniversary. That was not planned by any point, guys. Just luck of the draw there. So, yeah, just really excited for the next 21 years. Let's go.
So if you guys go through the history of this promotion here, NWA TNA would then become TNA, which was known as Total Nonstop Action in 2004. They were rebranded Impact from March 2017 to June 2017. And before that, Impact was known as GFW, Global Force Wrestling, from June 2017 to September 2017. And then they went back to Impact. And here we are now, fully changed and rebranded. Now, what I pulled away from watching the show, and we've been watching it weekly, but there's something different about when we're covering it to talk about it on a show in long form. And I really noticed how polished the product was and how deep the roster was and the emphasis on story right from the beginning.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's obvious that they have a lot of people in production who know what they're doing, love the pro wrestling business. And yeah, I mean, it is a really polished and consistent product week to week. And, I've been to a couple of Impact shows the last couple of years. They've stopped in Louisville at Paris Town Hall, usually about twice a year for the last couple of years. And I don't ever miss it, man. You're never disappointed with the product they put out.
So this other news story we're going to be covering in long form on Wrestling Tonight on Monday, and also you can catch it on Tuesday audio, but we have to mention it here. He's a pillar here in Impact as of late. Moose is going to be remaining with Impact Wrestling, so we saw him tonight on the live show. 39-year-old. He posted a message on his social media accounts on Monday announcing that he'll be signing with the promotion for long term. And he had this long form thing talking about the history of Impact Wrestling, how it was a hard decision to figure out if he wants to go somewhere. There was interest from other promotions, AEW, WWE, and also overseas as well. But this has been a conversation about where he's going to go. Thought this was a good sign for Impact Wrestling to be able to retain somebody instead of fostering them, making to a big star. They go off to, other ventures to figure it out. So Moose staying for a long time. And I think he's a guy that you need because we talked about the roster being deep. He's a guy who's very important. 39 years old, provides a veteran insight to the younger wrestlers in the locker room and still putting on quality product in the ring.
Absolutely, man. I mean, gosh, he's 39 years old. He looks absolutely incredible, man. Moose is, like you said, he's a pillar of Impact. And, man, I'm happy to see because, any promotion would be lucky to land this guy. And I think it speaks volumes of, the kind of ship they run over at Impact that he's re-signed. And he mentioned that it's the longest deal in the history of the company. So, that obviously shows how much that they value him. I've had the pleasure of meeting Moose at an indie promotion here in Louisville, Derby City Wrestling. Great dude. You could obviously tell he's got a passion and love for the business. And I'm excited to see him stick with Impact. And, who knows? He's obviously got a lot of gas left in the tank, but maybe he might be one of those guys that starts for one. He's a company guy, starts and ends his career with Impact, which would be really cool. You almost never see that anymore.
In the social media post, and go out and read it. It was an awesome post paying tribute to his time in Impact Wrestling. He did say something of note, and he said, when you think of Impact Wrestling, you think of AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, and the top names that come to mind. And he says, I want my name to be the top of the list. So, when we think about Impact Wrestling, you think about certain guys and aesthetics. I think of Samoa Joe. I think of AJ Styles. I even think, obviously, of Kurt Angle's time there as well. But he's been there for 7 years. You mentioned that from end to end. He's won several titles. He's the former world champion. He revived the TNA World Championship in 2020. He's also an Impact Grand Champion. So he's been in the title picture and he's been around. So he's always someone you can kind of light up and get him ready if you need a main eventer and ready to go. And we see him involved in meaningful programming. This is a really good sign for Impact Wrestling. They're able to keep him in the fold because there has been interest. It's not just, rumors and innuendo. He is someone that all the other promotions would benefit from having in the main event scene.
Oh, most definitely, man. Like I said, he'd be a good get for anybody. And yeah, he's very drive, got a great look. This guy stays ready to go. So yeah, good on Impact for having an environment where he wants to stay, but then also, like I said, making him an offer, signing him the most long-term deal in the history of the company. That's good on him for putting that out there and making it attractive for him to want to stay.
Absolutely. And we're going to be talking here about Impact Wrestling heading back to Memphis. So I'm sure maybe the Chick Foley boys are going to be going out there and checking out Impact Wrestling. But the promotion announced Mid-South Mayhem will take place on September 22nd and 23rd from Graceland Live. Tickets went on sale last Friday. We've seen Impact running shows in Memphis before. You mentioned them coming in your area. We had TNA Base Brawl took place in AutoZone Park back in 2011, 2012 in Memphis. But they haven't been back to the city since. So we got a whole bunch of different cities they're exploring to, and they're advancing their tapings. And they're not just doing... You and I in long form talking about Honor Society and ROH having just their stationary home outside of being taped on the back end of Collision or Dynamite. These guys are going out there expanding. We're going to see the Multiverse United in Philly. We're going to see them they've been running Canada nonstop as well. A lot of the energy in those buildings that they're running. We're going to see Emergence in Canada, August 27th. Victory Road's going to be in White Plains. They're going to also do the 1000th episode of Impact there. A lot of great stuff happening in Impact, and they're visiting cities they really haven't been back to, and it's a sign that maybe they're ready to take the next step.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And I mean, visiting cities they haven't been to in a while, and also making sure that they're hitting cities with rich pro wrestling histories like Memphis. So, yeah, it's exciting to see, man. And I was talking about indie promotion earlier, Derby City Wrestling. They're a part of larger United Wrestling Network, and they do a show weekly in Memphis as well. So, man, it's just good. It's a good time to be a wrestling fan. It's alive and well in all the old territory cities, it seems.
So the final piece of news here, and we can talk all about this later on down the line, but we do have Impact Wrestling going to Australia. The Down Under Tour is going to be happening at the end of this month. So we have about a week to be exact. June 30th is the Friday, and also Saturday, July 1st in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, Australia. It's a 4-day, 2-show tour. There's going to be a Conrad Thompson podcast, some fan events, things going on in the wrestling community, but Impact's going to be the promotion that's being featured there. We have some good matches announced. We're going to get Alex Shelley defending his title against Steve Maclin. Shelley, obviously, as we talked about, defeated Maclin at last Friday's Against All Odds. New world champion, which we're going to cover him at length and see if he can defeat Nick Aldis at Slammiversary, which is going to be a huge match. But Australia is this hidden gem. We've also talked about, WWE thinking about doing one of their main pay-per-views there, the energy for the crowd. They don't get a lot of live wrestling. I know Nick Storm was talking about that indie show that happened a couple months ago, but they don't get a lot of live wrestling. So it's a big deal that Impact's going there and running quality shows 2 nights.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's huge. I'm glad to see the Australian crowd get something other than what they've got locally. I mean, I know there's World Series wrestling over there in Australia, but I mean, I think a lot of the reason they don't get a lot is, I mean, dude, Australia, I used to work in the music industry. I never personally toured through Australia, but I have a lot of friends that did, and it's expensive. It's very, very pricey to run production over in Australia. A lot of it's travel, but just general cost of things over there is really pricey. So that's big news to see Impact get over there, man, and be able to make it worth their while and bring it to the fans. So yeah, that's super exciting. Kind of hard to believe that this is the first time they've been over there, but yeah, that's awesome for the Australian fans.
So if you are looking to watch this, I think Fight announced it could be purchased in a bundle package of $24.99 for the events. I think that includes the podcast format, the live show from Conrad Thompson, I believe. Don't quote me on it, but they will be available at the Fight platform. And it's going to be, you mentioned before, going to Australia. It's Impact's first show outside North America since September 2018, which they had an event in the UK. So this is a really big deal. So it's going to be airing live at 5 a.m. Eastern. So look to watch it. Maybe you're going to watch it live if you're one of those people that maybe have a day off or something like that, but it's going to be available on demand afterwards. And I would say, check it out. It's going to be quality wrestling. And as we could say from watching Impact on a weekly basis, it really feels like it's consistent storyline that is paying off. And we're going to talk about that throughout the whole night of here talking about Impact Wrestling. It's consistent storytelling that the peaks and valleys. I think Chad put it best in Wrestling Tonight. He talks about the peaks and valleys of AEW and WWE. I think the peaks are higher in both companies. Obviously, I think the storylines that really hit. But as far as the lows in those companies when they're really dragging ass, like Impact doesn't have those. It's a consistent straight line of storytelling that's going to entertain you. I was thoroughly entertained tonight with the hour and a half of professional wrestling we got to enjoy.
Yeah, man, same here from top to bottom. It's a very, very consistent. The valleys that they do have are not very deep, and you get a good mix every single week of great in-ring work and good backstage segments, story development. It's just pound for pound a really well-rounded product.
So this Wagga Wagga Australia Down Under Tour, we only have the announcement of the 2 main events on both nights. So as I mentioned, Friday, June 30th, it's going to be main evented by the World Championship, Alex Shelley versus Steve Maclin. And on the Saturday 7-1 show, it's going to be Deonna Purrazzo defending her Knockouts Championship against Giselle Shaw. So the rest of the card will be filled out, but 2 good matches to highlight. And I like to see that the Women's Championship, or Knockout Championship as they call it, is headlining one night of the show. And we'll talk about Deonna Purrazzo. I think she's doing wonderful things for their women's division.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And man, nice, really, really nice main events coming to Australia. Be interesting to see if maybe we see a title change. This is the first time they're doing a show in Australia, maybe doing big things and seeing a title change hand overseas. That'd be wild.
So if Shaw was to win the title, she's going to defend against both Purrazzo and number 1 contender Trinity at Slammiversary. So they're putting contingency plans in place just in case the titles do change hands. And I like that they're doing that because some of these one-off matches, when you get the in-betweens of pay-per-views, like sometimes on the build to WrestleMania, sometimes Royal Rumble, they'll be defending the championship, and what the main event of WrestleMania would be. It feels like it won't happen, that the title's going to change hands. I like that they're putting consistency and contingency plans in place to say this could happen, and this is what will happen if this person lose the title. If Maclin winds up retaining, he's going to be taking the place and facing Nick Aldis. They even have a match graphic ready for it just in case, which is really cool. It creates the illusion of sports instead of just, all right, wink, wink. We know the outcome.
Yeah, most definitely. It adds a layer of a believability to it, which is something I love because, you see WWE or other larger promotions, going overseas to do a show and you're like, oh, there's no way in hell that we're seeing a title change at a Clash at the Castle or anything like that. So yeah, this is this cool that they, helps you suspend your disbelief a little bit.
So with that being said, that's the news. And again, we'll use that segment to get you guys caught up. But if you want in-depth conversation about all the news in professional wrestling, Wrestling Tonight's your spot. Mondays at 7 p.m. or Tuesdays for the audio drop on in the morning, wherever you can find your podcast, whether it be Spotify, Apple, or otherwise. Check it out. So, I think there's a lot to give us the parameters of what's going on in Impact, but the best way to do it is with our next segment for the weekly show that we just watched in the Blow by Blow segment. Let's get into it.
Blow by blow.
Feels nice to have a bumper for that because when we were doing the ROH show, it was like right from the scoop into it, and I would throw the banner on the bottom, but I'm not even going to bother doing that. We'll just talk about this because part of this is going to be living in audio form, so we want to make sure that we paint the picture with our words, Colton. We got to make sure that we give all the details about this night. And the show started, taped in Columbus, Ohio, Tom Hannafin, Matthew Raywald, a.k.a. Aiden English at commentary. And for you were kind of dipping in and out of the product prior to doing this, so I want your initial presentation thoughts on how you felt this was presented and also the commentary team upon opening. Even though this was taped, I thought it had a different flair than just the typical ROH tape show.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Impact definitely has its own feel and presentation, whether you're seeing it in person or whether you're seeing it or you're watching it on weekly TV. The Tom Hannafin and Matthew Rywell, they're a great commentary team. I really enjoy their dynamic. I've made it no secret to folks out there, I prefer a two-man commentary team, no matter how good of the three guys you have sitting at a table. I just think the dynamic is better between two folks. I thought this was really cool that the show is in Columbus, Ohio, and that we open up the show with the Ohio Zone OVE. You've got Sami Callihan and Madman Fulton and Jake Christ coming out there to take on Brian Myers and the Good Hands and Jason Hotch and John Schuyler. So I like that's another nice, refreshing thing for us covering Ring of Honor and doing Honor Society. It's either always in Orlando or wherever they happen to do Dynamite the week before. So it's nice that they jump around and we get different crowds, different cities. So cool to see them in Columbus this week.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Ohio versus everything. And, they reunited back at last month against all odds to take out Callahan's rivals, The Design, in a street fight. And they really made it clear that they are paying homage to Ohio. And then Brian Myers and the Good Hands did a good job of working the crowd. I like that they played that part here. It felt a good way to get the night started. I got the Ohio crowd right behind them. As you know, Ohio fans are very much into anything the Ohio State, their Columbus Blue Jackets, Cleveland Browns, whatever is their sports teams. And they were very much behind OVE, Callahan, Madman Fulton, and Jake Christ. And I like their unit here. And of course, the Good Hands from North Carolina, I see a lot of potential to them, and other promotions would be silly not to think, I want to grab these two and build my tag division around them, because I saw a lot of shades of FTR in there. I saw a lot of different flares of that would be like, damn, how does WWE not get their hands on these guys? So I would say they're one of those guys that maybe it's a secret for now, but it's not long until Hotch and Schuyler are going to be on someone's radar.
Yeah, 100%, man. And they definitely come by that name, honestly. They are, in fact, good hands in the ring, man. Those guys are they've got the fundamentals down. They got a great look. Their teamwork is just seamless. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed Myers coming out here and just, like you said, Ohio's a state that takes a whole lot of pride in it, and they have a whole lot of home, pride in itself. And I like how Myers just kind of came out and got right to the cheap heat, like, started kind of, he's like, I like the term outlaw mud shows he used for what they're used to seeing here in Ohio. So yeah, man, love Brian Myers. I thought that was great. This match was good. This was it was a fairly standard trios match for the most part. until Moose we get Moose coming in, and he runs down to the ring and knocks Jake Christ off the top rope, and that draws Sami Callihan and Fulton out. They chase Moose up the ramp backstage, and while that's going on, they get the Myers and the Good Hands end up getting the pin there and getting the win, which is not exactly how I saw this match going. I figured, you get OVE coming out in Columbus, you figured they're going to go over, man. So, got Moose coming out early, fresh off that re-sign deal, getting some good heat.
Absolutely. We got Myers hitting what he's calling the roster cut, which is an ironic move here. Brian Myers, man, let's give a shout out to him and what he's done to his body. He is just an absolute monster. He looks like a main event guy. So seeing him with the Good Hands, like the tandem of them, as you mentioned, I thought the finish was, first of all, surprising to me, because I thought for sure they get the crowd going, have an OVE go over here, but this is obviously telling a long form story. But I also thought, the other thing is they're setting the stage for Moose and Callahan to have a long form program, maybe not with a title involved, but they do have an extensive and meaningful past with a lot of violence. So it would not surprise me to see, maybe even down the line at one of these events, maybe the Australia tour or Slammiversary, to have these guys link up and have, a heated rivalry, just heat it back up, because they do have that built-in history. The ending was a little discombobulated for me, though, because having them chase him up the ramp, you saw Callahan sort of slow down to get back in the ring to make sure he didn't break up the pin. But you know what? The finish was interesting. It was enough storytelling, and you had texted me prior. Like, I felt like we got more storytelling in this opening segment and match than we got in all of ROH, as we were saying here. This is what Impact does really well. They are layering their undercard stories better than a lot of promotions do. They're putting meaning on guys, even when championships are not involved. It's evident that they have an ability to tell stories and not lean on the crutch of just championship belts. There's a lot of good meat on the bone for this opening story, and it's a mid-card feud, but it feels important.
Yeah, I mean, especially like you said it best, man, with you got guys like Sami Callihan and Moose involved. I mean, these guys can easily transition into a feud that doesn't need a title involved, just on their, their reputations alone, especially in this company. So yeah, I thought this was great. I like having an opening match that ends in a surprise, and that's, kind of keeps you guessing. And like I said, yeah, first 16 minutes of this show, man, I mean, it's just a lot of story development. It's great. They just keep, as soon as everything's very succinct. Everything's timed very well, which I really appreciate. Nothing's too drawn out. And so, right after this match, we end up backstage with Eddie Edwards and Frankie Kazarian. They're going up in a tag match later in the night. And, obviously we saw a recap from last week. Kaz isn't exactly trusting Eddie Edwards. And, Eddie's back there, just asking like, hey man, what can I do to gain your trust? Kaz is like, not necessary. We're both veterans. We'll go out there. I'll do what I do. You go out there. We'll do what we do. We'll do our best to hope to come out on top against Bully Ray and Maclin tonight. But these are both guys that were trained by the late great Killer Kowalski. So that was something that Eddie brought up, and he was like, "Look, man, I swear on Kowalski's grave that I've got your back, and you can depend on me tonight." And thought that was cool.
It just shows you how long they've been in the business, because also trained by Killer Kowalski was Triple H too. Yep. So it just shows how long they've been out there. And, we skipped over it in the news section, but I definitely want to mention it here, just at least a bit, about Kazarian being on Kurt Angle's podcast, talking about leaving AEW. And he had noted that he thought he was an AEW lifer, but didn't like what became of the company wrestling wise. He wasn't critical, but he just said the wrestling wasn't for him. And he said he wanted to be featured in a main part and a main story. And I think the Elite Hunter had some legs for me. And I know we've been sort of critical of that on every platform, saying it could have been something special that they just dropped the ball. And this loan and relationship between Impact and AEW kind of was a gateway drug for him to get back, because he was loaned from Impact to Impact from AEW. He had the opportunity to have great matches there and realized, man, I like it here. This is the reason why I was there. I was originally in Impact, honing my craft, and did a lot of great things here. And he now knows, in this interview, he noted on Kurt Angle's podcast, said it's a better fit for him because the opportunities are just not going to happen in AEW, realizing he's going to get the opportunity to tell stories even at 45 in Impact. And you could tell tonight, main event guy here in the main event. And even though he is not part of the title picture, he feels like he's right on the outside of it. And that would have never happened at All Elite Wrestling. That's not being disparaging towards Frankie Kazarian. It just talks about the way the roster is constructed. He fits much better to me on Impact. And even just the initial segment here, he felt like a completely different character. He holds more weight here.
Oh, most definitely, man. He's not a, not just one of the old veterans that's here to put younger guys over and give new guys a shine, which, I mean, at one of the Impact events I was at last year, I got to see a match between Josh Alexander and Frankie Kazarian. It was one of the best live wrestling matches I've ever seen in my life. Like, this guy, even at 45, is in incredible shape. He's got tons left in the tank. He's got a lot left to offer, man. And I think, how grateful I am to have him in Impact and see him be able to be, mid card or, on upper mid card stories, because he's got a lot left to offer.
Absolutely. And we went right into another segment. Sami Callihan was obviously not happy with the way the first match went down, throwing chairs in the back. And we had the emergence of Rich Swann coming up to him. And he's like, dude, I should have been there to back you up at against the odds, but I was all tied up. And he says he knows what Moose is all about, and he swore he'd be there to back up Callihan from everywhere there. But to me, it feels like this is going to go the opposite way. There's something brewing here, and we're going to have to see and wait exactly what's going to happen. But there's something there. Rich Swann is a main character here. He's been feuding for the world title, and he's a main event guy as well. So definitely some good story being told. And Sami Callihan, that we know something's up with this.
Oh, yeah, man, absolutely. And a big fan of Rich Swann. Loved seeing his work with Willie Mack in the past. Another one of mine and your personal favorites.
Yes.
I'm excited to see where this goes with Rich Swann for sure.
So we go to our second contest of the evening. Dirty Dango. We're taking on Bhupinder Guttar. And this guy was someone that Impact targeted as someone to watch in 2023. And you can kind of see why. Like, young talent here. We saw that this is built from last week's episode where they had a confrontation in the back where Dirty Dango is doing this gimmick where he hates professional wrestling. And they did this documentary on Bhupinder on Impact Plus, and they were talking about just in general his rise to professional wrestling, how he got there, his story. And Dango is very upset. I mean, he's been trying to unseat Joe Hendry for the Digital Media Championship. And at this point, it's now coming out in long form against all these other opponents. Dango got the win here in a pretty quick match here, and Bhupinder really stood no chance. He had a reverse DDT, and Dango grabbed the stage manager's cell phone, which then we realized it was, I believe, Bhupinder's cell phone. Started taking a video, and then we get Santino coming out. We see him as being, the leadership that's taken over for Scott D'Amore now that he's here. Hit him with the Cobra, which to me is one of the more over finishers ever. I mean, I still remember that Elimination Chamber where people thought he was going over winning the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, if you guys missed that from all those years ago, go out and check this out. But Santino Marella is a great character, and I popped seeing the Cobra come out.
Oh yeah, man, I pop for it every time. But I definitely like his his basically rent-a-cop outfit that he's got going the badge and the windbreaker that says DOA on the back. I love it, man. Yeah, I thought I'm really enjoying this iteration too of Dirty Dango, especially seeing how far he's come as Fandango in WWE to where he is now. I like this kind of heel, like, I hate pro wrestling gimmick that he has. He's playing it up really, really well. But yeah, like you said, really quick match. Did not think this one was going to finish up that quick. I have not, like I said, I've kind of come in and out of the weekly shows with Impact, where we've been spending a lot of time covering Ring of Honor. So Bhupinder Gujjar, I've not seen a ton of and from, and dude's got a great look. I'm excited to see more from him.
Yeah, hit a really good drop kick during this match too. So there's some promise there. And I thought, I don't know. I mean, watching this match, I thought he would have got more offense, and especially how he was presented going into this documentary and all that stuff. But no, the focus is on Dirty Dango and how mad he is about losing to Joe Hendry, which we'll get to Joe Hendry, who to me is everything about this show. We'll talk about that. That's chef's kiss there. But we also got a montage of the BTI pre-show match. And if you guys are unfamiliar with BTI, it's before the Impact. They have a pre-show to every weekly show and usually get one match and some segments and all that. But we had Jody Threat getting the win over Nevaeh. They showed the airplane spin bomb, which is kind of a nasty looking fall over there. So Jody Threat here, and I'll let you cover this backstage segment where we get a weird segment. This is some stuff we'll see on Impact as well. We're going to get Rosemary and Havoc with a whole different iteration of themselves here. I'll let you take the lead about this segment, about the stuff that we saw with the Death Dolls, and filmed in a goofy way, but I felt like it worked for them.
Yeah, most definitely. A little campy, but I mean that in the best way possible. So yeah, afterwards, she and Nevaeh are backstage talking when the latter saw Courtney Rush and Jessica walk into the backstage area. So they break into a conversation about their past characters, of course, Rosemary and Havoc, and they complete with a wacky camera angle where the Death Dolls had a not so secret conversation where they kind of go into a huddle while she's still right there behind them, can hear everything she's saying. But go back to the beginning. They basically, Nevaeh suggests that they need to go back to the beginning of the history of their story to help figure out their origin story, which the dolls loved. You can tell that they're big nerds. They love an origin story. This is, like they say, this is a good quest for them to go on. And yeah, they kind of skip off into the Blue Yonder to do just that, to go on that quest. So yeah, this was goofy, but it was very fun, and I'm excited to see where it goes and see a little bit more development here.
What I did like, and again, if this was on AEW or WWE, it would definitely get ripped apart, but I think it fits really well with Impact's aesthetic and how they film things. Very experimental way of doing things on a wrestling show. The angle they use when they were huddling up with the camera facing them, just how goofy it was. Again, this does not fit on every wrestling show, and there's a couple things sprinkled into these shows, and of course, we'll talk about the Zicky Dice thing in the next segment that kind of felt very similar to this, but I think that's what makes Impact a little bit diverse. I think, and we've talked about this on different platforms. When AEW emerged as this de facto number 2, they didn't have to try to be WWE light. They were able to lean into this unique stuff and do things that are different. I mean, you can go to the Ultimate Deletion, you can go to all the other cinematic type of stuff that they really invented, the intergenders type of stuff. They were able to find their own niche in the corner of the wrestling world, and this is part of it. This is something that for a lot of people it hits, and a lot of people find this is a unique flair because they're not trying to be something that WWE and AEW already gives you. This is, one-stop shop for this type of stuff would be here in Impact, and I think it lives here, and I think it's a good thing on the show.
Yeah, I do too, man. It's got a place that it breaks it up and makes it not so serious for a minute, and I think it's it's fun, and you should have some fun in your wrestling.
So we have Zicky Dice, and he's talking about training on being a referee. He's with Johnny Swinger. If you guys remember Zicky Dice, he's one of those standouts from the days of NWA, from that class that was, now LA Knight. We also had Eddie Kingston there at the time, Ricky Starks, but Zicky Dice was just, to me, as impressive as all those guys. Here he lands on the Impact roster, and they're doing this goofy stuff with the referee, and he's trained to be a ref. He needs a ref certificate. He has the license and the shirt ready to go. And he says he's entering a brotherhood of these referees, the Zebra Brotherhood. And Swinger interrupted and said with Dice, he was on his way of getting 50 wins and an Impact World title shot. What did you think about this segment of Zicky Dice? And this guy has a lot of charisma. I think he has a good place in wrestling. He looks like an old 80s wrestler to me, with just everything about him, the haircut to the facial hair and the tattoos. I think he is professional wrestling personified in a lot of ways, and he's unique.
Oh, most definitely, man. I'm a big Zicky Dice fan. Another guy I've had the pleasure of meeting once at a couple of indie shows here in the area. And yeah, he's just the right amount of greasy, man. He's like the perfect, the perfect type of kind of 80s heel feel to him. And yeah, you undersold it on the charisma, man, because he's got it bursting from the seams. I think this guy's got a big future. I'm glad to see him in Impact. I hope that I think that he could definitely be a top guy here. It's hard to not enjoy Johnny Swinger. So I mean, I think they're an interesting pair here. And yeah, I enjoyed this segment. Another fun one backstage, and kind of easy transition in from the previous one as well. So yeah, love Zicky Dice, a guy that's got a great internet presence as well. He's been around for some Derby City Wrestling here in Louisville too, and he actually live streamed him and another professional wrestler friend watching it back on Twitch. So yeah, definitely a guy who loves the wrestling community and engages with fans, and like you said, just his cup runs over with charisma, and I never get tired of seeing Zicky Dice.
I love it, and keep wearing that fanny pack, dude. That's that's the shit. I wear a fanny pack too. I love it. It's very, sometimes you don't have pockets, man. Wearing basketball shorts, you need the fanny pack going. So, and Zicky Dice knows that.
Very utilitarian.
So we have the next match here. We get back to the action. The Design, Khan and Angels taking on Mike Bailey and John Gresham. So if you guys remember, we talked about the Design earlier. They failed in their attempt. They were trying to get revenge on Callahan against all odds. They lost in a street fight. And we also talk about Bailey and Gresham. They were unsuccessful in winning the 8-4-1 match against all odds to get a championship match. And they're paired up now with something to do. And Mike Bailey and John Gresham, you know me, I love Mike Bailey. His run throughout Bola. I mean, also GCW. Mike Bailey on the independents anywhere he goes. And John Gresham, ROH. And he had his issues with Tony Khan and he's disappeared from ROH. But he's found a nice home in Impact because this is a guy to me that carried that ROH brand over the finish line for a bit while it was floundering, didn't even have a home as the ROH world champion. He got them to a point where they were able to live on and he kept some lineage on that championship and some prestige. And I like seeing them here, but I think at the end of the day, I'm sure John Gresham would have liked things to be different, how it went down after that main event with Claudio dropping the title. But I got to say, man, Impact is a great landing spot for him. He fits like a glove here.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Impact's a great spot for him. And, you know, I love this team of him and Mike Bailey. You know, Mike Bailey's one of the best out there doing it today, period, whether it be on the Indies Impacts or, New Japan, wherever this guy lands. I mean, he's always putting out top-notch work. He's always something to see. And, you know, we've seen Bailey and Gresham across the ring from each other quite a bit. So cool to see them as a team here. I thought this was a good match, man. You know, they showed a lot. Bailey and Gresham showed a lot of really nice teamwork, especially on assisted pop-up cutter that nearly led to a finish early on with a Bailey armbar on the Angels. I thought this was a really fun match. Bailey got knocked into Gresham on the outside of the ring, and then Angels accidentally knocked over Diener, causing a little bit of commotion between Diener and Angels, also on the outside of the ring. Angels recovered, hit a sweet-looking Spanish fly from the second rope for a near fall. And then at that point, Diener jumps onto the apron, starts yelling orders to Angels, saying, hey, this was not the plan. And then in turn, distracts him, and Bailey hits a tornado kick after his second attempt into the corner, followed by the Ultima weapon on Angels for the pin and the win. And so, yeah, these are definitely starting to see the cracks and the problems show in the design.
Yeah, that Ultima weapon move is insane. It's coup de grace with dropping two knees on the back. So Mike Bailey's offense looks snug and stiff, as we like to say here in the tavern. And I think Mike Bailey is one of those guys that if you don't know his name, you better get to know it. I think 2023 is going to be, and it continues to be, his breakout year. And he has a good chance of being wrestler of the year, not just because he's doing things in Impact, but like I said, he's world traveled, he's elsewhere. And I mean, Battle of Los Angeles tournament, he was the highlight for me. I mean, obviously walking away and having those great matches, a great match with Takeshita. Mike Bailey is one of those guys that should be on the biggest stage and could be anywhere. And it wouldn't surprise me if Impact puts the rock behind him to keep him involved in this promotion, but he probably likes the freedom of being able to do the things he likes to do with, we mentioned before, the GCWs and elsewhere, and going everywhere. The guy is everywhere. He works. I mean, it seems like he works 4 or 5 times a weekend. So this match was really good. And seeing Angels as well, former part of the Dark Order, we saw him for a bit, and nice to see him find a home here in Impact. The guy was very impressive in his short time with AEW in the Dark Order. But, Mike Bailey and John Gresham, we'll see if they can coexist and potentially be in this tag division, because I think that's interesting. We saw a little bit of, they did have a good cohesion, but we all know that both these guys are singles wrestlers at heart. So the story is tale as old as time with these two guys. Can they coexist? Because if they can, they'd be unstoppable.
Oh yeah. I can't think of another team that would really give them as much of a run for their money if they can coexist. They would absolutely dominate the tag division in Impact.
So we have Trinity backstage. She's being interviewed by Gia Scott, and she's talking about Giselle Shaw winning the Knockouts titles during Impact Down Under. As I was mentioning before, really selling the fact that the titles could change hands, and Impact making clear that if she does win, it's going to be a 3-way match. She got a pretty good promo. She said she wasn't nervous about it at all, and then she called out Shaw's assistant, Jai Vidal, for a match next week. So I like the way Trinity's being presented here. As I said, Deonna Purrazzo is the standard here in the Knockouts division, women's division on Impact side, but it feels like a matter of time before Trinity walks away with that championship. That's why she came here. She's someone you signed, and she was a hot free agent. Her and Mercedes leaving with a lot of buzz from WWE. No one knew where she was going to come up, and Trinity could have went anywhere. She could have come to ROH, AEW. She chose Impact, and Impact is going to reward her for it. She's going to be the champion. They're going to build a division around her, and Deonna Purrazzo is going to pass that baton and see what they can do with Trinity. She is first ever SmackDown Women's Champion. She's the real deal here. So Impact's lucky to have her. Main event feel for the women here.
Oh yeah, man, 100%. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of Trinity's in-ring work, and she's spent a lot of time, off on the shelf, and it's really good to see her back. I think Impact is not necessarily where I would have guessed that she would have landed at first, but I'm really glad that's where she is. I think she has a lot to offer, and no disrespect to Deonna Purrazzo, she's incredible. She's been a great champion, but she's had a good run, and I think Trinity will definitely do that Knockouts title justice. So, and I think it would be really cool to see this as potentially, and that would also, give a big main event to Australia. I think this would be really cool to see this as a trios match going into Slammiversary. So I'm kind of hoping that's the way it goes.
Yeah, and it would put a lot of credence to these international tours to make them feel like something can happen. Like, go see Impact live, because even though they have their biggest event of the year sewn up and you feel like the main event is set for the women's title, things could change. So it makes everything have more validity, that any sort of live event, doesn't matter if it's a Down Under tour, doesn't matter if it's a show that's in Memphis, you have to watch the shows because anything can happen. And that, as you mentioned, it would be fun to see Giselle Shaw get a short run, be it for a little bit, to pass the title over to Trinity over a month. It just creates a little bit more of a buzz going into Slammiversary. I would say probably Deonna Purrazzo is going to walk away champion, but you're right. There is that sliver of hope that they have graphics made. They have all this stuff that they're putting some weight behind it, where a lot of promotions don't bother doing that. And to me, this has some, pardon the pun, impact for me.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, most other promotions will do the exact opposite. They'll kind of try to not acknowledge that they're having the championship matches at these other international events, because they don't really want to put in the work like they're doing here. And I mean, yeah, I really appreciate that Impact does it. They treat their fans as, what they are, which is smart wrestling fans, people who know the business and care about it. And it's, it's really not that much effort to put a little bit, add that layer of believability in with it.
So we have the next segment here, and we say goodbye to Jimmy Jacobs. We talked about this on Wrestling Tonight, and I think the Two Bad Chads talked about it in the flagship the week ago. Guy working back in Impact. One of the reasons that Impact's been on a hot streak here as a producer, AEW took note and hired him. So Jimmy Jacobs is going to be going off to work with All Elite Wrestling, which has started already. So this was taped a couple weeks ago at this point. But Jimmy Jacobs was appearing with a statement from Nick Aldis talking about how he wouldn't be at the show because of Alex Shelley threatening his safety. And obviously Shelley interrupts him. And this is how they kind of wrote him off TV. Shelley super kicked Jacobs, and Chris Sabin stood over him. And we say goodbye to Jimmy Jacobs on Impact Television. And who knows, we're going to see him on screen in AEW, but he's going to be working behind the scenes, pulling the strings. And he did a really good job of, like we mentioned, put a consistent storytelling on Impact Television week after week. And let's hope he can do the same thing for AEW going forward. And he's just another great mind to help with the other 2 hours of TV, whether he's on Collision or Dynamite.
Yeah, man. And, big congratulations to Jimmy Jacobs. That's a huge opportunity for him. A guy that had a great Ring of Honor career. It's cool to see him go back, go to work for Tony Khan, working for AEW. But yeah, man, I mean, not the only great mind from Impact that's being picked up by a bigger promotion. His name escapes me right now, but another former Impact creative guy has kind of become Triple H's right-hand man, is what I was reading. So that's, it speaks volumes to the type of talent that this company employs, both on screen and off screen.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is with Impact, you can tell that whether it's talent in the ring, talent behind the scenes, that there's a streamlined of production value all across the board, where the product feels very, very strong and polished. Where if you were watching TNA or Impact back in the day, where you felt like it felt lesser than, that's just not the case anymore. They're really leaning into their identity of who they are here. As I see you're looking up the WWE Impact guy. I see you over there, Colton. But
yeah,
I'll lead us into this next match, and you tell us who it is for this, because I think it's important to note.
It's Jeremy Borash.
Oh, Jeremy Borash. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just shows you that all these guys in Impact, I mean, you can even talk about production side, Lance Storm, who's helping put together matches on the Impact side. And it just shows, again, what they're doing, and it's consistent. You're putting wrestling minds in the right spot to help the younger talent put together matches, and it's wrestling minds putting together for wrestling fans. And I think they're reaping the benefits of having all this talent behind the scenes, and guys like Jimmy Jacobs, Jeremy Borash, who was there for a bit, and not to mention Lance Storm and all the other minds that are there, even the veterans in the ring. Talk about Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Those dudes have been there tried and true. And that they're helping with building their stories at least and helping the younger talent put together matches, and everybody's getting better for it.
Yeah, there's no way you have that much experience in a company. You're not asking those guys to help in the the development of story. You'd be silly not to.
So we have the women's division match here. Taylor Wilde taking on Killer Kelly. I'll let you lead us through this match. I thought it was pretty good. Killer Kelly obviously was showcased here, and we got some shenanigans after the match to continue telling stories. That's what Impact's been doing. Everything feels like they're telling consistent stories and weaving them through, getting us ready for Slammiversary, which is less than a month away.
Yeah, man, this was I thought this was a great match. So Killer Kelly, Taylor Wilde, they lock up to start, and Kelly switches to a brief headlock. They both kind of pose off for a beat before Kelly delivers a few kicks for cover. Kelly goes to run to the ropes, but Kylan King pulls one down, gets a cheap shot in there while Taylor Wilde's got the ref distracted. Kelly gets back in there, and Wilde takes control, attempting a cover, striking her in the spine. Wilde locks in a big surfboard into a brief backslide cover. She kicks out at 2. Wilde takes Kelly to the second rope to choke her and really just knocks her backwards with that second rope, man. It was really, really stiff work from both these women tonight. It was really good to see. We love to see that shit here at the tavern. So she goes to cover her again. Another kick out. Kelly cuts Wilde off with headbutts and then a suplex into the corner. So Killer Kelly gets a little bit of offense in. She hits a running drop kick, gets a cover attempt. It's not enough. They trade roll-ups back and forth before Wilde stops her with a knee to the gut. Kelly drops Wilde into the killer clutch, but Wilde rolls back out of it and out, but Kelly still manages to trap her kind of with a sit-down roll-up for the win. Another kind of quick finish here tonight. I didn't think this was going to be it right here, but I love a surprise finish. But after that, Kylan gets in there, and the Coven just kind of really go to work on Killer Kelly, which brings out Masha Slamovich, which, man, I love seeing Masha Slamovich. She's an incredible talent. She runs to the ring with chain in hand and kind of freezes and not really sure exactly what she's going to do. It's unclear whether she's going to go to work on the Coven or if she's going to, I know there's really not a whole lot of love lost there with Killer Kelly and her, but she does end up taking out the Coven. And you kind of see Kelly and Masha kind of staring into each other's eyes deeply before she rolls out of the ring there. So, yeah, cool to see Masha come to her aid. And, it'll be interesting to see where they go with this forward. Are they going to team? Are they going to have another feud? I don't know. Like you said, Impact doing what they do best and telling stories.
Comparing this to the Outcast story with the women's division and on the AW side, what was your takeaway? Because in my mind, I'm comparing the two because I'm watching Killer Kelly and Masha feeling a certain type of way. I felt they felt big to me. Masha feels like again, I'm coming from the perspective I watched her as GCW champion. She feels like a larger than life presence. Did you walk away feeling like they were doing a better job presenting the women's division than AEW is doing currently, or do you feel like it's just two different things?
I feel like I feel like they definitely are doing a better job of presenting it, but for the most part, I feel like it's apples and oranges. I've always Impact's women's division or Knockouts division, whatever we want to refer to it as, has just been a better product for a long time. I mean, I can think of just down to stories, match work, everything. I mean, one of the best women's matches I've seen in the last couple of years was Masha Slamovich versus Jordan Grace for the Knockouts title last year. I can't remember what the pay-per-view show was, but they had a spot where they did a Death Valley driver off a ladder into a table, which was just absolutely brutal, man. I mean, I think it's apples and oranges between the two. I think there's a lot of complaints out there about AEW's women's division because it's as far as talent wise, it's a stacked division, but there's just a real lack of storytelling and development there. And I think it's a lot more developed here in Impact.
Maybe a guy like Jimmy Jacobs can help take that storytelling, and I'm not sure exactly what matches he was behind the scenes on and help him put together, but you have to know that he probably had some hand in the women's division, so maybe he's being brought in to do things like this and help tell stories that feel bigger than just having a one-off, shooting an angle where it's just, a run-in. I know the Chads are talking about this on the flagship. Every time the Outcasts come in, it's spray paint and a run-in, and that's just not meaningful story. I feel like with Killer Kelly and Masha, that's so deep rooted where when she comes out, the fans know the importance of her making the save and how she's putting their differences aside and the mutual respect after the battles that they've had, even recent days having battles going to war with each other. It just feels different, and it speaks volumes. I think Impact, if you guys have been watching Impact, their women's division has been heralded as creating future stars. I mean, you go down the list of all the different women in wrestling, a lot of them had spent time in Impact prior to going elsewhere. So Impact has and continues to do it, creating new stars and cultivating what they have and making the women's division feel like they're on par with the men's. And that's important to do because, WWE tries to do it, and I think they do a pretty good job of doing it. But there are times where I think Impact quietly is the industry leader as far as women's divisions go. And I think they don't get the credit they deserve because the names aren't name brand yet, but they will be after they leave Impact and go elsewhere where they, WWE will claim as their own, or AEW will do the same.
Yeah, man, 100% agree. It's top quality and they don't get enough credit.
So we see a replay of Steve Maclin and Bully Ray. They're beating up Scott D'Amore, and Scott D'Amore's had a huge part in Impact Television. If you guys have missed it, PCO, of course, the Canadian Frankenstein is involved as well. GM Miller asked Scott D'Amore in the back about why he took a leave of absence from being president. Scott D'Amore cut a very impassioned promo here, and he says he wasn't ever good enough as Maclin and Bully have ever been, and he's ready to get down and dirty at Slammiversary. And Scott D'Amore looks directly in the camera and he says it's going to rain holy hell in Windsor, and that one of them will not be walking out of that bout. Man, I thought that was a good promo from Scott D'Amore. Dude has a lot of passion, great presence. I mean, this is a guy who has been involved with Impact, whether you go with, Team Canada with Petey Williams back in the day. Scott D'Amore has a history here, but this might be the highlight of his existence in wrestling. I mean, all these weeks ago, he hit the Canadian Destroyer. He's taking bumps through tables. He's all over the place. He's going to get a chance at Slammiversary, one of the biggest events of the year, to shine in the ring against two guys. I mean, Bully Ray, at least, that he probably looked up to for a long time.
Most definitely, man. And yeah, not just bumps through tables, bumps through flaming tables, man.
True.
I love Scott D'Amore on the mic. I really enjoyed this promo. I like to, he kind of laid it out that he's the one that brought Bully Ray back into Impact, and he's going to have to be the one to take him out. This is, and I'm a huge PCO mark, man, and I never get sick of seeing the French Canadian Frankenstein. So I'm looking forward to this match going into Slammiversary. I don't really necessarily have a whole lot of expectations for Scott D'Amore's work rate, but I think it tells a great story, and they're doing a good job building it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't knock him. He has the passion for it. I mean, like I said, that promo was a lot better than a lot of promos you'd see from guys. You felt that it was exuding through the screen. So he's selling the match. He's doing his best to sell the match is important. And I think people are buying it. And Steve Maclin coming off of being the world champion, being involved in this, and PCO having his share here. I mean, at the end of the day, this feels, I guess, like as big as a tag match with a non-wrestler can be,
Yeah, man, definitely.
So we lead into this next match here, and we talked about him before, but it's a championship match here. Digital Media Championship on the line. Joe Hendry defending his championship against Yuya Uemura, who we're familiar with from New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Colton, I got to ask you, do you believe in Joe Hendry?
I absolutely believe in Joe Hendry, brother. I'm a big Joe Hendry fan. One
of the catchiest theme songs in the history of wrestling. Great presentation, just immediate. He comes on the screen. He's absolutely he has this presence about him that feels larger than life.
Yeah, most definitely, man. He's got a great look. He's like, he's built like a classic wrestler. He's 6 foot, like 250 pounds. Like, the guy's got a great tan, blonde hair up top. Like, he's got and he's the longest reigning digital media champion that Impact's ever had, man. That it's a beautiful belt. I love the belt.
Beautiful.
I hate the belt name, but that's the biggest critique I have of the Impact product. That speaks volumes.
You would want it to be what, the television championship instead? You think?
I think just, for the most part. But I mean, I understand why they choose digital media.
It's grown on me for sure. It was weird at first, but
because it's not just television anymore. And you and I both consumed the Impact product via YouTube tonight. So
yes.
It is telling that's what it's called. But just a little old school just old habits dying hard for me, man. But I've come around on it.
I hear you with that. I think that that's a big piece too. And the championship's been around for a while now, but it has to be, I guess it's the modern day television champion, because we always talk about Nielsen ratings being archaic. That's how they measure things. And Impact, again, ahead of the curve. Digital media is more important than television by itself. So the name is awkward, though. I agree.
It is a little awkward. I don't know. Would I like the streaming champion better? I don't know. I haven't thought. I can't come up with a good substitute. So yeah, I mean, it's who knows. But hey, shout out to Turnbuckle Tavern there in the comments. Thanks, fellas. Yeah, glad to be doing it.
Yeah, loving the chat. And like we said, you guys have requested Impact Professional Wrestling here on the Turnbuckle Tavern, and we are the de facto source of all things professional wrestling. How are we not covering the unanimous number 3 in all of North America? So here we are covering it at long form, and we're going to be here, like we said, every Thursday around 10:10 to 10:30, depending on when we're able to get our notes together. It feels like it's going to be 10:10 because if we're able to watch it at 10, we can get right on. And then audio the next day. What else could you ask for? A little, on Friday, pop it in, listen to us, listen to the Raw Down back to back, and then you get all the wrestling needs you have going into the weekend.
Nothing better. But yeah, man, this Hendry and Yuya Uemura match, I thought this was a good one. This was a pretty solid. These guys are size wise a good matchup, good dancing partners. Hendry and Yuya lock up for the first time ever. This is the first time these guys have ever wrestled each other. Yuya tries a couple of headlocks and hits some really beautiful arm drags early on. He goes to the bow, but Hendry suplexes him and then follows it with a clothesline. After the break, Joe Hendry elbows Yuya and hits a neck breaker cover. And Hendry keeps Yuya grounded for a minute, but he punches his way out and hits a bulldog. Quick match, but they trade blows back and forth in the middle of the ring. Yuya explodes with a running clothesline, body slams Hendry and goes up top, but Hendry chases him, cuts him off, and gets a fist to the face. Yuya hits a crossbody, but Joe rolls through, catches him, hits a standing ovation slam for the win. Love the standing ovation slam. Great finisher. Forgot to mention, but as soon as the bell rang, Kenny King came down the ramp and joined the fellas on the commentary booth. So I'm a big Kenny King fan. I know he's just a fan of his work. He's a great wrestler. He's a super heel here right now. The crowd's booing him as soon as he comes down. But yeah, this was a good match, a good strong finish for Joe Hendry. But Kenny comes into the ring with title in hand and presents it to him. No words exchanged, but a hell of a stare down between these dudes. And I think it's obvious who Joe's next opponent's going to be.
Yeah, I think we're going to get Slammiversary at least, or maybe we're going to get on this Down Under tour. Probably Slammiversary. It feels like it should be bigger than just a one-off in a week. I think they should build towards it. Kenny King, as you mentioned, great heel, and I think it has some meaning. And Joe Hendry's been this longest reigning digital media champion. The championship feels important. Cut a good promo prior to the match as well. And Yuya Uemura was impressive too in short bursts here. And I think Uemura is 28 years old, young guy, able to showcase what he's doing here. But right now, it's Joe Hendry's time. And I think he is one of the highlights of every week on the show and making the most and maximizing his time and making people remember his name, whether it's the theme song or his promo or his in-ring antics or his moveset. He has it all, man. And if you're sleeping on Joe Hendry, don't sleep long, man, because this guy is potential personified. This guy's great.
Oh, yeah. I think it's not going to be too long. Next couple of years, if this guy's not in the title picture, something's wrong. The world title picture, that is.
So before we move to the main event here, let's just break down the card for Down Under Tour and Slammiversary coming up. For Down Under Tour, as we mentioned, it's a 2-night affair next week, June 30th, and also July 1st. So Joe Hendry is going to be taking on Eddie Edwards, Chris Sabin taking on Frankie Kazarian. ABC is going to be defending their tag titles against the Motor City Machine Guns. And then set for next week on Impact, we're going to have Sabin versus Trey Miguel, Trinity versus Jay Vidal, and Nick Aldis is going to be addressing his actions for everything that went down. He will be there after leaving that letter with Jimmy Jacobs. And at Slammiversary, right now we only have 3 matches set for the card. We have, like we mentioned, less than a month, but I'm sure they're going to put some more matches, including the Joe Hendry match we're going to be seeing soon. The Impact World Championship on the line. Nick Aldis against Alex Shelley. Knockout Championship. Trinity getting a shot against Deonna Purrazzo. And we get that tag match we mentioned. Steve Maclin and Bully Ray taking on PCO and Scott D'Amore. So Slammiversary coming together, Down Under coming together. We got the Summer Sizzler next week as well. Leo Rush is going to be returning. So Impact has a lot on the horizon for the next couple of weeks. And they fit the mold for this crazy, busy summer we have in the world of professional wrestling that just gets busier.
Oh yeah, man. These are all going to be incredible matches. I'm really excited for that Sabin Trey Miguel match coming up next week. He's getting that Trey Miguel's cashing in on that contractual rematch for the X Division title. That'll be a real banger.
So we go into the main event. Steve Maclin and Bully Ray teaming up. They're trying to get the cohesion together going into the Slammiversary main event, taking on Eddie Edwards and Frankie Kazarian. We'll see if Kazarian and Eddie Edwards can coexist after, on the good name of Killer Kowalski. They got to put all their differences aside and make it work. But, this match was, main event feel. Paint by numbers type of tag match. Steve Maclin, Bully Ray being the veteran in this match going out there. I mean, Eddie Edwards and Frankie Kazarian, so veteran as well. Steve Maclin's no spring chicken either. So these guys going out there and doing their thing in the match and built the heat up. Bully Ray's so good at eliciting heat from the crowd and working people in the heel corner and doing a good job trying to get people to react. And that's what he does. I mean, this Columbus crowd was eating out of the palm of their hand here. Some highlights of this match. Kaz hit Maclin with a Hurricane Rana, which was awesome to see Kaz at the age he is, 45 plus years old, hitting a Hurricane Rana. And we also had Bully Ray just being shit heel during this match, chasing Alicia around when Maclin striking Eddie from behind, playing just classic heel stuff here. But we see the end. We got Kaz applying a chicken wing on Maclin. Eddie Edwards gets in the ring, super kicks Kaz accidentally. Maclin plants Kaz for the win. So some miscommunication between guys that are not used to teaming up. Will this have ramifications next week with Eddie Edwards and Frank Kazarian? Eddie had promised that he wouldn't do it. You can clearly see it's an accident, but will Frankie see it that way? But here we are. That's how we went off the air.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good finish. I've got to say I was really impressed. I mean, not surprised, but still none the same, very impressed with the tag team cohesion between Frankie Kazarian and Eddie Edwards. These guys they've both got a lot of success in tag teams in their past career. Eddie Edwards with Davey Richards and American Wolves, and then Kazarian, SCU, among others. He's been teaming with Christopher Daniels. I mean, these guys have been, they're veterans to say the least, but they looked really, really good together. I was kind of surprised that we didn't get any little bit of exchange between these two guys, especially after the buildup, going for can you trust me? I've got your back out there. So, but that just leaves more meat on the bone to tell the story next week.
Yeah, and I think I was waiting for something, as you mentioned, after the match, for something to go down, especially with maybe Scott D'Amore. Who knows? I think felt like it just ended kind of abruptly. And no, they're waiting to next week to tell the stories. And when it went off the air, I thought at least we'd see Eddie Edwards and Frank Kazarian arguing over the finish, and we didn't get that. But maybe that's going to be happening next week, and then that's going to continue the story where, man, these guys tried their best, and Eddie Edwards, he kept his word. If you're looking at it from kayfabe point of view, kept his word. He did not turn his back on Frank Kazarian, but unfortunately, miscommunication happens, and now he's going to explain himself because Kaz is not going to believe him, and that's the problem here.
Yeah, be a little bit of a rift between these guys, and probably end up in an incredible one-on-one match between them, which I'm looking forward to seeing.
So quickly, shout out to Dolly Pool, 4:18 in the morning. Thanks for watching. Eating a kebab, dude. Enjoy.
Should I go for a kebab right now?
Yeah, kebab's amazing. So thanks for watching Dolly Pool. Make sure you subscribe and like Turnbuckle Tavern. Follow us on Instagram at Turnbuckle Tavern, because we have your source of all things wrestling, not just Impact, dude. We got you everywhere. But let's get into Impactful Moment and talk about what our favorite match of the week was, or moment.
Impactful.
All right, so you may know this segment from Honor Society as Top Honors, but it's going to be called Impactful here. And Colton, I'll let you lead the way here. Talk to me about your favorite moment or the biggest takeaway that you had enjoying most about watching this week on Impact on Access.
Dude, for me, it's just going to be match of the week for me was the tag match with Speedball, Mike Belly, and Gresham going against the Design. I thought it was, Becca said, big fan of both those guys individually, but I really enjoyed seeing them tag together here. The fluidity between the two of them was fantastic, and I thought you hit the nail on the head earlier when you were saying if they can coexist, they can be a force to be reckoned with in the tag division. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Thought it told a great story and got a lot in a short amount of time. So yeah, it was match of the night for me. What was your moment?
I feel like it has to be that match for me. I mean, I would say I like the Joe Hendry match here. I like the Digital Media Championship. The match went a little bit longer. I think more, give it a little more time to mature and get a little bit better. I think it could have had potential to be there. But I think as far as everything going on here with Mike Bailey and John Gresham and the Design, I felt like it was the best work rate with Bailey and John Gresham leading the way. But Con and Angels held their own as well. some impactful offense by both guys, Bailey and Gresham, showing out, and Bailey was able to do it. If you've never saw Mike Bailey, I think this was a good sample size to see what he can do. And not only just the in-ring stuff, but just like the charisma, as we mentioned with a lot of these guys, but the facial expressions and being able to emote in the ring. Mike Bailey and John Gresham, two of the top guys to ever do it.
Oh, most definitely, man. Yeah, Mike Bailey just gets better every time I see him. That guy's going to continue to climb the PWI 500 year after year till he's at the very top.
So let's get into the final wrap up as we get prepared for next week and talk about what's happened on Impact. We're going to set the stage for the Tavern and everything you have to know about everything going on here at the Turnbuckle Tavern. So let's get into the final wrap up.
Shock and awe.
So sometimes in this segment, we're going to recommend an Impact match for you guys to check out, but we don't have that this week. Just so you know, next week's show is going to be next week, 6/29, the last one of June. We'll be talking about the weekly show of Impact on Access. We'll be talking about the latest news in Impact, catching you up, preparing you for Down Under, also preparing you for Slammiversary coming up, tying in some Impact history to fill in the gaps. Make sure you guys tune in. But Colton, before we say goodbye to everybody on our debut of Brace for Impact, what do you got? What do you got going on at Mullet.mania? What's going on with the mullet competition?
So, man, I got my mullet freshened up yesterday. I'll pop off the headphones, give you guys a little side-by-side here. Looking nice on the sides. Back's looking nice and fluffed. My hairdresser is going on maternity leave. Actually, she went to the hospital today. So they are going to be she's going to be out for a month. So I got nice and freshened up because by the time she comes back, I'll be a couple more touch-ups and been getting these professional photos done for the contest going on in August. So keep an eye out on my social media. I'll have it all over there. It's going to be all over everybody else's in the Tavern social media from what I've been told as well. So, keep an eye out. Give me the votes. We're looking to take home that trophy.
So you're here on Brace for Impact, but I know that you're on the debate this week as well. Give us some hype for that coming up on Sunday night.
Yeah, man. Good to be on the debate this week. Sneed's on vacation on the beach. And Chad is taking a hiatus right now from the debate. So is myself and Tom with the Pod Warriors. We got Seth and Jordan on there. I had the opportunity to be on with both those guys on separate debates in the past. So it was cool to get both of them at the same time. It's a good one this week, man. We had some really, we had some good conversation. I think it was for the figure fans, we did have a figure question of what is the best figure line of all time. So, but especially with those guys involved, I mean, as you can see behind me, I do collect, but I'm probably the youngest in my collection as far as the four of us go. So yeah, it was a good conversation, man. And all around shout out to Tom. He put together all the graphics and everything this week, and he did a great job.
Awesome. So guys, check that out. Obviously it drops. You can get the early release Sunday on video, but Monday it drops in the morning. Start your week off with wrestling conversation. On my end, guys can find me tomorrow night, Shot Nostalgia for Rock Bottom in Your House. Mike is back talking about it. We're on the second to last episode of season 3 of Shot Nostalgia. We're going to be talking all things WWF 1998. We have one more episode left before we move into season 4, which is Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. First episode will be July 7th. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to get into it. Colton's going to be there with me and Mike talking about all things Smoky Mountain Wrestling, a mini season, 7 episodes of goodness, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, man. Smoky Mountain's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys are not familiar with that product, it is a hell of a special time in the pro wrestling archive, man. It's a good time. So make sure you join us.
So also on Mondays, like I said before, you guys can catch myself and Chad, one half of the co-founders of Turnbuckle Tavern, talking about all things wrestling and news and all that on Wrestling Tonight. The audio drops on Tuesday. You guys can also catch me from the wrap-up last night. I popped on with Mike talking about AEW. What else do I got going on? Obviously, you guys can catch me here Thursday nights, Brace for Impact. Oh, and also airing after Shot Nostalgia, I have another Visits to Tavern. It's going to be myself talking with Liam Jacobs, the Based King. He's from Remarkable Wrestling. He's in the Tennessee area now, so he's looking to take some bookings there. So we have a conversation, not just about wrestling, but about Bigfoot, about going to the moon, talking about conspiracy theories. So it went off the beaten path, but it was a good conversation with a guy that I work with at Remarkable Wrestling. It was a really fun conversation. So make sure you guys check that out. If you're looking for something to listen to like right now, the audio is available at Aceville Retro on Spotify and Apple, but check out the video tomorrow night, airing directly after Shot Nostalgia, 9:30 p.m.
Hell yeah. Well, like always, guys, go to theturnbuckletavern.com. We're on every single platform you can think of. Yeah, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Pro Wrestling Tees. Go over there, get a shirt. We've got some new designs over there. Yo, shout out to Tyson Trevino. Hey, yo, in the comments. Good to see you, man. Instagram is still continuing to blow up. We broke 9,500 followers this week. We cannot thank you guys enough. If you're a fan of what we're doing and you're not liking or subscribing, please, it only takes a second, only takes one click. If you're a fan of the podcast on either of the audio on either Spotify or Apple, leave us a 5-star review, write a review. That shit goes a long way, and we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys do that because, again, this is all free content. We're not getting paid for this. This is just out of love of professional wrestling. So make sure you guys support us. The least you can do, come on, go out and buy a shirt maybe, but the least you can do is just leave a review. 5 stars if you can, and give us some feedback. And call the tavern too. We don't have the graphic here, but this is how Colton became involved with the tavern. He called us, talked about Dom Mysterio, defended his honor, and look at Dom right now. He's one of the best heels in professional wrestling because at Mania defended him. Come call the tavern.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to take total credit for Dom being was getting some of the best heat in the wrestling industry, but I might have played a small part.
So I want to thank you guys so much for listening to the first episode. I hope you guys enjoy this. And Colton, this has been such a fun ride. I mean, I know you and I have been working together for about 25 weeks now doing the ROH stuff, but this was really awesome to cover something that felt like it had a little bit more significance, and not hating on ROH, but I think we can cover it in short bursts on Wrestling Tonight. We can really expand and talk an hour and change about Impact and what they're doing, because like I said before in the opening, they deserve the spotlight and put some weight on what they're doing, because a lot of people are sleeping on them. We're going to have a drop here of, Turnbuckle's own Tom sleeping on it. He says nobody watches Impact, but we're proof that people do. So
absolutely, man. Yeah, it's like you said, no disrespect to ROH. Love the product. It's quality matches, but man, they pack a lot. When you pack in 13 matches in 2 hours, my head's usually spinning. It's hard to keep track of everything that we just got to. You and I are always talking off air about how much we like Impact, and I just could not be more excited to be covering this week to week. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Brace for Impact every Thursday. Catch us again. We'll be here every Thursday at 10:10 to 10:15, maybe 10:30. But yeah, here for everything Impact for you guys.
And I just want to give a quick thank you to Chad for creating the overlays and making all the graphics so quickly, because we came up with this. He's like, oh, if you guys want to do one final goodbye to Honor Society, we'll do one episode and I'll have it ready by next week. And you and I were like, let's try to get it all in. And he was able to turn it around, and the graphics look fantastic. I dare I say one of the best graphics we have here in the tavern. And those videos look great and set us up to go. And here we are, man, live and in person, only 4 days removed from coming up with the inception of the idea. Like, let's just transfer everything over to Impact and get it off the ground.
Yeah, man, couldn't do it without you, Chad. We always appreciate your hard work, man. It looks great. Absolutely love the music, love everything. Yeah, you knocked it out of the park in a short amount of time, man. We really appreciate it.
And Tyson, yes, this will be in audio form, dropping tomorrow in paired with Raw Down, so you guys will have 3.5 hours worth of stuff to listen to on Friday, and we have you covered from wall to wall. Go check out all the Pod Foundation. Check out the Extra Cooler episode they just dropped. Check out Chick Foley. Pod Foundation's got you covered. But we will catch you guys next week on Brace for Impact. Make sure you guys go out and check out all your independent wrestling and support them along the way. So I've been at Acefield Retro. He's been Colton. We'll catch you guys next time.